everyone. It's Renze back for another episode of the Be Who You Came to Be podcast. First off, I just want to start with a little gratitude and say thank you so much for making me part of your life, for allowing me to share this message with you and to inspire you to go all in on exactly who it is that you came to be. This is kind of a tough episode, and it was something that I pondered on. Do I want to talk about this? Do I not want to talk about this? But I think it's such an important subject, and I hope that it gives you some clarity on navigating difficult situations, how you show up online, and not getting caught up in the either or trap when you don't fully agree with something or you're super passionate about something. Last week, as you know, our country faced another tragedy. There was another school shooting. And like so many of you, my heart is so heavy. We keep asking ourselves, how can this keep happening? As a mother, it is the most terrifying thing to think about, sending your children to school and having something like this happen where they are supposed to feel safe, where they are supposed to be learning, where they're supposed to be loving. And this one hit extra hard. My kids go to a Catholic school. I can't imagine on their first day of school, them going into mass and praying and having to experience something like these children experienced. It's heartbreaking. It's devastating. It honestly just makes me sick to my stomach. But here's what strikes me every time that we've had this happen. You know, we're all wondering, why haven't we had a solution? Why does this keep happening? Why does this keep happening? There is so much anger and fury, and I get it. I'm angry. I'm pissed too. I want it to stop happening. Who doesn't want this to stop happening? I don't think there's anyone who does not want this to stop happening. But we have a problem. We have a very, very big problem in our country. You know, I went online afterwards, and it was the same thing that we see every time that we go online. We go online trying to find the answers, trying to figure out what's going on. You know, I went to look for empathy and connection, humanity. And instead, what I saw the majority of the time was politics, was blame, was division. And that's not emotional intelligence. This episode is hard but necessary. Because if we truly want to solve this problem, or any problem, if we truly care about our children, we have to put our agendas down, we have to stop screaming from the corners, and we have to start honoring each other. We have to lead with empathy. We have to lean into connection. We have to be who we came to be and allow other people to be who they came to be. The Be Who You Came to Be message is that we're all different. I believe that we were all put on this earth for a very specific reason. We've been raised differently. We have different values, but we have different authenticities. We have different talents and strengths, and we are all different. It's why there's a million sports teams. It's why there's a bunch of different genres of music. It's why there's different colleges, and there's different types of houses, and there's different styles, and there's different fashion. And guess what else? There's different political parties. There's different religions. There's different places that people can go based on their values where they want to align themselves, you know, who they want to align themselves and what they want to align themselves with. But what happens when there's this tragedy, when something happens like this, people decide to sit in their corner of the arena versus collaborate and compromise and come together. Instead of saying, we got to figure this out, people dig their heels in. And they are so into their agenda that they cannot see beyond the blurred lines. They cannot see anything else. And they certainly don't want to collaborate and compromise, not even when it comes to our kids. So I'm going to be going through a couple different things today that we can talk about, that I hope that we can come to common understanding about. And that as a country, we can start to realize that if we really wanted to solve this, we could work together to do it. But until our leaders and our politicians and the people who push the political parties are willing to put their swords down and come to the middle, it is going to keep happening. First off, we're going to talk about the either or trap. You know, one of the biggest mistakes that we make when tragedy strikes is we fall into this either or thinking. You know, we say things like, prayer doesn't solve this, or gun laws won't fix it, or we need gun reform. And we just go to the one thing that we want to push, our agenda that we want to push. But here's the truth. None of this is going to solve it alone. I think it's safe to say that we need gun control, that we need mental health reform, and we need prayer. We need prayer. We need all three. These things don't exist on their own. If we combine the three of them, then we've got a powerful solution. It's not an either or. Prayer alone is not going to stop bullets, you're right. But gun laws won't heal trauma, and mental health reform won't erase violence. The three of them together is the winning combination. They can move us closer to healing, safety, and real change. And these things are not mutually exclusive. We don't have to pick one. You don't have to pick one just because it's more on your agenda than anything else. We need all three. Blanket statements and blame don't solve anything. In the aftermath of any tragedy, I always see these blanket statements flying. Republicans are to blame. Maha's to blame. Trans people are to blame. Hold your prayers. We don't want your prayers. These blanket statements are so hurtful. They solve nothing. They hurt communities. They make people feel worse. It solves nothing. It doesn't do anything. Do you see what's happening? These types of statements are bringing us divide, not closer to solutions. There's no empathy in blanket statements. They're not emotional intelligence. It's fear and anger looking for easy targets. And when we reduce people to categories and labels, we lose sight of their humanity. We lose sight of who they are and who they came to be. If you want to protect our children, if we want to protect our children, we have to stop fighting straw men and start listening to each other. We have to say, hey, I don't believe in everything that you believe, but I want to solve this problem. I think we could come up with something. I'm willing to give up some stuff if you're willing to give up some stuff. Or, we could meet in the middle. How could we do this? How can we solve this for all of us? I want to address the role of prayer. This is something that's personal to me. I'm a Christian. I believe in the power of prayer. I've seen the power of prayer work in my life. And I agree that prayer is not going to solve school shootings. It's not. But slamming prayer and insulting people and saying, hold your prayers, we don't want your prayers, we don't need your prayers, that's a cop-out. Prayer is not policy, but it is power. Prayer doesn't change laws, but it can change us. It softens hardened, hearts. It grounds us in compassion. It creates the connection that we're desperately searching for in moments of grief. The problem isn't prayer. The problem is when we stop prayer. Prayer should be moving us to action. It should be starting in the first place, not the finish line. And in a situation like the Catholic school shooting that happened, saying you don't want their prayer is an insult to their religion. Those children were in the church praying. Anytime that I've had grief in my life, I always turn to prayer. I know it's not going to be all the answers. I know that as a human being, I'm going to have to take action on the prayer. But we need prayers. We love prayers. And I promise you, anyone who's ever sad or grieving would never say, I don't want your prayers. Bring me a lasagna or I don't want your prayers. Solve the problem for me. It's not the way it works. Stop shaming people for praying and for the religion. It solves nothing. So now let's move on to gun control and the mental health reform that we need to have in our country, I believe, if we want our children to be able to grow up and be who they came to be. Let's be honest about gun control. Whatever we're doing is not working. I grew up in a small town. My family are gun owners. They're hunters. They took hunter safety licenses. I believe that in the right to bear arms. I do. But I think we need to make it extremely difficult. We have to have gun reform. We need to make it extremely difficult for people with serious illness, with anyone with a record, to have access to weapons. And you know what? I don't think we need semi-automatic weapons. I don't think we need all of this. I just don't. But I do believe in the right to bear arms. I think that, people should have the right to have protection and should be, to be able to have guns if they're good, outstanding humans who don't have records, who don't have a history of mental health. We've seen how this has worked in certain cities where, they've actually saved lives. My brothers, when they wanted to start hunting, they had to take a hunter safety course. Why aren't we if you want to own a gun, you can own a gun, but you have to take a safety course. We're going to do an extensive background check on you. Now, it's not going to solve all the problems because just like drugs, you can't go in and get cocaine at the CVS store. You're going to have to find it underground if you really want it. People are going to have access to guns no matter what. There are bad people in the world who will supply guns to bad people, the end. But we need to do more to make sure that the guns don't get in the wrong hands and that there's not this excess and the celebration of guns. look no different, look no further than Hollywood. Hollywood says they want all the gun reform, but they romanticize guns in every movie. Violence, guns, video games. It's disgusting. And so we say things out of one side of our mouth, but then we do other things. We romanticize and glorify violence with movies, and the guns are sexy. We really need to take a hard look at how we're presenting in all aspects of Americans. But here's the challenge. If we want to address making sure that guns don't get in the wrong hands, we have to address the mental health crisis in this country. It's not enough just to create restrictions if we're not providing resources, support, and intervention to those who are struggling. If we're not willing to actually help someone who is struggling mentally. Gun control and mental health go hand in hand. Without one, the other falls short. And our country, in my opinion, has completely let down anyone who's struggling with their mental health. We have normalized it. We have tried to make it seem like it's okay. And it is okay. If you are struggling and you need help, then you need help. But we shouldn't say it's okay that you're feeling like this. It's normal. We're going to normalize it. And we want you to feel like it's completely normal. It's not normal. And I cannot imagine struggling mentally and someone telling me that was normal. I can't imagine how lonely that must feel. I mean, imagine if you went in with a physical illness and they were like, it's fine. It's fine. Everyone, is growing a sixth eye or, a sixth finger or, is having a rash all over their face. Like everyone has it now. It's normal. It wouldn't feel normal. It wouldn't feel good. And you would want someone to help you. You would want a solution. And so we need to be willing to say, hey, it's okay that you're struggling and we're willing to help you. But then those people in the meantime get flagged in the system that say, hey, this person is suffering from a mental illness and they definitely do not have access to guns. We need to make sure that they do not have guns. Do you see what I'm saying here? Like these two things go hand in hand. Yes, guns are terrible when they fall in the hands of someone who's crazy. Mentally ill people shoot up schools. Mentally ill people create mass murders. People who are in their right minds do not do that. So we need gun reform, but we also have to have a way that we identify people who are crazy, who are not well, who need help. Now, it doesn't mean that they can't, eventually find their way back into society and live a normal life. We should be providing ways for these people to get better, not to continue to spiral. I read a lot of the manifesto of the person who committed this heinous crime at the Catholic Church. It was clear that they were not well in the head. They admitted it in their writings that they were not well in the head. They knew they were not well in the head. And then we continued to overlook this person, to pass them by, and to not give them the resources and help that they needed to find medical intervention, to find love and compassion that they needed. This is not about taking sides. Again, this is not about taking sides. It's about protecting our children. If we really care about their safety, we would be willing to work on mental health and gun issues at the same time. This is why emotional intelligence matters. It's not some soft skill that you learn at a workshop. So many people know about emotional intelligence, but they don't know how to apply it. It's about being assertive and empathetic at the same time. If you're being assertive on Instagram or social media or wherever you're projecting your stuff and you're not being empathetic, you are not doing anyone any favors, and you're certainly not showing up with emotional intelligence. You need to be able to choose connection over division, to regulate your emotions long enough to ask what response will bring healing, what response will bring solutions. When we attack, when we blame, or when we shame each other, our children are watching. They're absorbing how we handle crisis, how we handle pain. Do we fight? Do we cast blame? Or do we connect? Do we try to find an understanding? Are we finding solutions? How are you showing up? Are you empathetic enough to put down your ideas and to listen and to try to understand? And if we want our kids to be emotionally intelligent, we have to model it. We have to show them that when tragedy strikes, we don't retreat into our concerns, cast blame, and start screaming from the rafters. We come together. That's how we raise children to be who they came to be. That's how we raise children who practice empathy and love, is that we come together to find solutions. And we're willing to compromise. We're willing to say, hey, let's work together for this. You know, at the end of the day, this conversation is not about politics. It's not about Democrats or Republicans. It's not about who's right and who's wrong. It's about our kids. It's about our future. It's about the safety of places that are supposed to be safe for your children, for you, grocery stores, movie theaters, schools, and certainly a sanctuary. Every child deserves a school where safety isn't a question. They deserve parents who model connection and empathy. They deserve leaders who put humanity over agenda. They deserve a world where they can live out their gifts, their talents, their dreams without fear. And our responsibility as the adults is to create that for them. Why not put armed guards at every school? I know that at my kids' Catholic high school, there's 2 police officers that are there all the time. We should have armed guards at every school. We should be doing everything we can to deter anything like this happening. Anything like this ever happening. You know, what if that was the solution to work together? What if we started doing, a national program where we would have people at schools who could protect children, that would have this first line of defense? There's so many things that we could be doing to think outside of the box versus just posting blame on social media and saying it's either about mental health or it's either about gun control. I'm sorry, it's about both. We need reform for both if we're ever going to make any progress towards this. This is also the power of being who you came to be. Because part of being who you came to be is acknowledging that we don't all think alike, act alike, that we don't share the same politics, we don't share the same values, we don't share the same religion, we don't all look the same. And here's the thing, if you are truly comfortable with who you are and who you came to be, you will provide space for other people to do the same. You won't be trying to change people. It doesn't mean that you can't inspire them to be a better human. It doesn't mean that you can't show up and help them be a role model for what you want, but shaming and blaming and putting people down does not work. It inspires no one. Emotional intelligence teaches us to honor each other regardless of our differences, to respect the fact that we have diversity of thoughts, diversity of beliefs, diversity of politics, diversity of religion, diversity of sexual preference, diversity of everything. We're all different. There's not 2 of us on this entire earth that are exactly alike. And we have to learn how to come together and to honor that, even when we disagree. Being who you came to be is not about uniformity. It's about authenticity. It's about creating a world where we and our children are safe to live out exactly who we are, without the fear of violence or judgment or hate. We have created a world where people are truly scared to step into their own because of what someone else is going to say, someone else is going to think, someone else is going to do. And it's gone so far that people have resorted to violence because they feel so small about who they are that they want to hurt other people, that they want to hurt, and they want to cause, pain to other people. When we honor each other's differences and our humanity, we model the kind of world that we want our kids to inherit, where they can fully be who they came to be, where they can fearlessly show up authentic to who they are, and to know that they're going to be respected and that they're going to be loved no matter what. So where do we go from here? We pray. We do pray. But we also need to advocate for reform. We need to demand better mental health resources. We need to write our politicians about gun control and mental health. We need to show up and we need to start talking about the things that matter most, not on 2 different documents, on the same document. We need gun reform and mental health. And in the meantime, I'm going to pray for anyone who's been impacted by this, and I'm going to pray that we can find a solution and that we can come together. And most of all, we're going to honor each other. Because prayer without action is empty. Policy without empathy is ineffective. And action without connection will never last. This is our chance to lead with emotional intelligence. It's our chance to create a future that our children deserve. And it's our chance for each and every one of us to be who we came to be and give other people the permission, the space, the safety, and love to be who they came to be. So let's choose empathy over blame. Let's choose connection over division, and let's choose our children over politics. Because if we don't, who will? Thank you for listening today. Thank you for listening every day. I'm praying for the families that were impacted by this horrible tragedy. I'm praying for the future of our country. And I'm praying that we can create sustainable change by getting a hold of gun reform and mental health in this country so that we can create a world where our children can be who they came to be. I'm Tara Renze. Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast.